Welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet on this Tuesday morning, raining down here in South Louisiana. Stay safe if you're out on the roads. If you're catching us later in the day, make sure and hit that like, share button. We appreciate you being there. All of our sound brought back to you by RMB Builders, rmb-builders.com. Rhett Bourgeois and his crew online. They can help you out with just about anything. A project around the house, a total reconstruction, a custom-made home. Get in touch with them at rmb-builders.com. One of the best is Josh Pate in college football. If you're not following him, you need to, as he is on Twitter. He's on YouTube. He is all over the place, as you can find him at Late Kick Josh, as he is on YouTube giving you updates every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday night, 7 o'clock Central Time, where he's got the latest on just about every program. And LSU's been a hot topic. He has showed his love for Tiger droppings. We got the site roaring for Josh Pate. My man is
Tiger droppings.
If he was a candidate right now, he would be one of the hottest candidates out there because everybody be lining up to pay for his service. LSU making a lot of people rich. Josh, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, will we be one of them? Will we be two of them? That's what I want to know. I just want to be the guy one day that gets a rumor floated out about him at the same time as the basketball team has to take a bus to a game because they have budget cuts. Because that's what happened to Michigan State yesterday. Wow. So that's all I've ever wanted in life.
Apparently, if you get mentioned with LSU, you get $100 million. So that's a good deal.
What did you make of Mel Tucker? What did you make of that news?
I remember the first thing that came to my mind was when he was being hired. He was at Colorado, and then Michigan State comes and gets him. And I don't know how well people's memories are of that period, but the biggest single talking point nationally was, wow, Michigan State vastly overpaid for Mel Tucker. And that was then. That was, it feels like a long time ago. It's only 2 years ago. But people felt like they outpaid for him then, and it was really just them showing that they could do it because they were in the Big Ten. Well, now, I mean, I don't know what you would have said, but if you would have told me 24 months later he's going to be neck and neck with Nick Saban as the highest paid coach in college football, what would you think? Well, I would think he's gone to coach the Detroit Lions. I don't know what I would have thought. I would not have seen a path short of Michigan State miraculously winning a national title where that was going to happen. But we also know that once COVID entered the equation, it sort of backlogged the entire coaching change process in a lot of ways. And all I think it did was dam it up a little bit. And now we've released that dam everywhere from LSU to especially Virginia Tech, USC. Yeah. And it's had a ripple effect or a tsunami effect in the industry to where you are going to see numbers that maybe you never see again. I think that the misconception is the numbers keep rising in this world. And they may not. This may be the absolute crest, the absolute peak that we ever see some of these numbers floated out there. So it's a very good time to be a very good coach.
I am looking forward to tonight's broadcast on YouTube. You can catch that at 7 o'clock. If you are not subscribed to Josh's YouTube page, get over there and hit that alert button so you're notified when he goes live tonight for Late Kick with Josh Pate. If you're following and need it on Twitter, it's at Late Kick Josh. 23 hours ago, you tweeted out, hire Dave Aranda and thank me later. The former LSU defensive coordinator and current Baylor head coach. Why so high on his stock right now?
So this past weekend I was out there, and I had always observed Dave. I've never really been around him for an extended period of time. So when we were at the OU Baylor game, we got some time with him, both before and after the game. And I'm telling you, what I observed is obviously them winning over Oklahoma. It's not so much the win, although that was a very, very good thing, a very good feather in his cap. I listen to the way a lot of folks talk about their process, about the way they go about things. And most of them honestly sound the same to me. There are a few who stand out. Nick Saban's always stood out. Kirby Smart gets it. He's always stood out. Ryan Day. And if you've noticed the trend, these are very successful programs. They stand out. The way that Dave Aranda talks about the process they go about doing things there, it stands out to me. It sounds very cerebral. It sounds exactly the way that those other guys sound. Here's what I love. What I loved is after the game, you guys know him because he was at LSU, hardly ever smiles. And so after the game, he walks in. Everyone's so exuberant. They want to celebrate. They want to get their quotes in the post-game press conference. And Dave Aranda walks in, and the biggest takeaway he had was, well, I'm kind of aggravated that it mattered. And people are looking around saying, what do you mean, what mattered? He said, well, the TCU loss obviously mattered because we got a higher level of play today coming off a loss than we did last week. And I've got to believe that it's because our guys were fired up because they had a negative result last week. We are not where we ever need to be until that doesn't matter anymore, until we play to a set standard every week, regardless of external factors. Now, that stuff bores a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's coach speak. That's not coach speak. That's a life philosophy. And it's the kind of thing that if you can instill into an organization instead of just yourself, it's the way to sustain success. That's the difference in some of these programs that win and then fade really quick and they can't ever get back to that level, and doing something like Alabama's done. That's all they ever talk about at Alabama. They don't ever talk about result-oriented goals. They don't ever talk about their destination being winning a championship. And I circle back to what I just said again. Everyone thinks that that's boring. No one wants to talk about that. Everyone wants to talk about disrespect. Everyone wants to talk about motivation. Everyone wants to talk about what's going to get you hyped up. The standard. That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah. So I think, and I really, really believe, Dave Aranda is a guy that not only gets that, I think he can inject it into an organization. And I also think he himself has adapted and is still learning and adjusting just this last year. I think he's come a long way in his sort of in-game strategy offensively. I think he's flipped some switches. I don't think he's done doing that. And so he has all the qualities. He checks every box I would ever want for my head coach.
He has showed some emotion over the last couple of weeks, too, that I think has kind of jumped out to some people, especially here in Baton Rouge, who watched him for so long on the sidelines. I mean, he's very calculated. He's very calm. He's very patient. But one of the most interesting things that I heard from a former player of his, Josh, after he left was, and I'll say it was Jacoby Stevens who told me, he said, the thing that they missed the most about Aranda was his communication style, the way that he would talk to the players and the way that he was able to get the best out of the crew without yelling, jumping, screaming, and just talking to them almost like men, treating them with respect, I think was kind of what it came down to. And that was very eye-opening for me in the moment. I remember thinking to myself, he's going to make a tremendous head coach because people are going to respect him.
I completely agree. And I remember back when I played, I remember, we had a great big hill behind our football field. And obviously that's where you go when things have gone bad. And I remember, we would obviously you got to get your conditioning in. I'm not talking about conditioning, but, and it almost seemed like back in the day, you had coaches that were yellers and you had coaches that were send you over to the hillers to run up and down. And then there were coaches that actually knew how to tell you how to fix what you had done wrong. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other ones, they just yelled and they sent you to run hills because they didn't know anything better to do. And Dave Aranda is not the send you to the hill guy. I mean, he'll get on you and you're going to be conditioned, but what he knows is the game, and also what he knows is how to put what he has in his mind in your mind. And that's exactly what I've noticed about him too, is what you said. Those folks who have that approach, they almost draw you in a little bit more because they're not constantly on 11 on the microphone. But it's not just, is he relatable? It's not just, or is he a screamer? It's what coming out of his mouth is going to change your career for the better. That's what matters.
Josh Pate joining us here. He's fantastic, 247 Sports. Make sure you're following him and subscribe to his YouTube page at The Late Kick. Tonight, a newest episode will be out at 7 o'clock Central Live. And I'd imagine you'll be talking a lot about this LSU job. What do you make of this Lincoln Riley story and the smoke that is hovering over LSU's program with Riley in Oklahoma?
It's going to be very juicy. Let me make one correction. I'm laughing because it's funny. This will probably get me in a little trouble. So, the actual channel that we do the show on right now is the 24/7 Sports channel.
Right.
Yeah,
sorry. We're scared of suits here. We're scared of suits here. That's my fault. Right.
Correct. Okay. So who knows what's going to happen between now and tonight? I think it's kind of humorous to me that everyone seems to be waiting on pins and needles for an announcement, like one's going to come in the middle of Oklahoma's season one way or the other. I don't think that's the way that's going to go down. but I do buy into the idea, buy into the notion, let's say, or the theory that smoke screens are real. And I'm not necessarily confident in telling you this is one. I am confident in saying, oh, it could be one. And what I would really love is for us to get on the back end of all this and to look back and something has been a smokescreen to where when you tell this story down the road and then you got the LSU coach, so, you know, the ends are all tied. When you tell the story, I want there to have been a legendary smokescreen. Yeah. And if that's what Lincoln Riley is, it would be legendary, Jordy. What I've always been curious about, and sometimes it happens this way, sometimes it doesn't, is how deep do we get into this thing before a mystery name that no one has thought of previously comes to the forefront? And that really, to my knowledge, hasn't happened in this search. And again, maybe it won't happen, but I think you learn a lot about Scott Woodward every day by the way that the search goes, and you can't judge it until you get to the end, obviously. But I think I don't know if they're having fun down there, but if I were Scott Woodward, I'd have to take it at least 5 minutes and have a little fun and do a little cursory scan of internet, Twitter, message boards, etc. every day.
Shout out Tiger Bait Lawyer.
Absolutely. I mean, do you know what you did for Tiger Droppings when you gave him the shout out on your platform and
it was mean of you.
Individually named Tiger Bait Lawyer? I mean, you have got them wanting to enter a float into Endymion, sponsored by Tiger Droppings.
They're looking for a Pulitzer
with the lawyer, with Tiger Bait Lawyer riding on the front as the ornament. I mean, that was amazing.
Look, I've heard stories about if Kim Kardashian or Paris Hilton or anyone like that, if they mention you on Instagram, how much it's worth. But that's yesterday. I think the modern day value is how much juice can we get your message board handle if we name you on the late kick. That's what I want to be talking about.
You're a menace.
You are, bro. I mean, the way that you have infiltrated college campuses with game day signs now into Tiger Droppings with Tiger Bait Lawyer.
The most volatile place on the planet.
Do you expect Florida to open up the job at in Gainesville? Yeah. What will that do? Do? What will that do to this coaching search?
It'll add to it. It'll just turn the faucet open a little bit more. Here's my entire perception on that. I get the feeling that there will be some hesitancy there. Ultimately, I don't think it'll stop them, but I think there'll be some hesitancy because they're scared to get into the open market with the market being as crowded as it is right now. Now, 10 years ago, no one at Florida was really thinking like that. 10 years ago, Florida thought, we're Florida, we'll go get whoever we want. I get the sense that they don't feel that way about themselves necessarily, even though they should, in my opinion. Having said that, I still think that they're going to have to make a move. If they don't, then I don't care what they say. If Florida does not make a move and get themselves a new head coach in there, it will only be them prolonging this period because they don't want to get into this market, in a market this volatile, and in a market where they don't perceive there to be enough A-list candidates out there. But see, here's the thing about it. You don't need an A-list candidate as defined by media or even your fan base, to be frank. You need the right head coach. And sometimes the biggest splash is a dud, and sometimes you hire a coach and it's nothing more than a whimper on the national scene, and then they end up winning for you. I don't know if Florida's ready to do it because I don't really know if they're ready to fully commit to it. Everyone wants to claim they're fully committed to football around here. LSU is fully committed to football. A&M is fully committed to football. Bama is. Georgia is. I don't have doubts about that. I do have a little bit of doubt about Florida. And I'm also interested in watching Miami down the road because they're saying the same things. You've got those phrases like money won't be an issue. We're ready to spend. Well, we're going to find out. Yeah. We're going to find out about that in due time because I think while we're at it, that job will probably come open too.
Yeah, so the athletics director for Miami was terminated earlier this week. Is Billy Napier the safest play on the board for any job, in your opinion?
Well, so do me a favor. When you say safest, because we may have different definitions, define safest for me.
In Baton Rouge, consistently winning 10 games a year with top 10 recruiting classes?
Or Florida?
I think that, yes, I think that's a guy who in time could accomplish that. Who knows? Maybe he would off the bat. Mm-hmm. Here's where I am, though. I view Dave Aranda that way, too.
Yeah.
and I'm not comparing one versus the other, but I also, I don't know. I think that there is a ceiling on the long-term perspective, let's say, for a Dave Aranda program that I trust to be a little bit higher. Napier could very well be that way too. Now, we have spoken about Billy Napier before. Yeah. Billy Napier, as a matter of fact, has some of the same characteristics that we've been talking about with Dave Aranda. If you value a more tenured track record as a head coach, obviously by a few years he has that too. So look, I've heard this. Here's what people say up here in Nashville. You tell me if it's accurate down there. Are there people rubbed the wrong way at the prospect of going to Lafayette to get the head coach for LSU? Is that accurate?
I think that there are some. There are definitely there's a contingency, but I don't think that that's anybody that Scott Woodward's paying any attention to. Right. You know, I don't think that there's any big money that has any say-so that would say we're not taking Lafayette's coach, and Woodward would only reply if he's the best candidate for the job. We're getting him. I would imagine is where that would sit. I don't think that would have any influence on whether or not he would get it.
Yeah, I would hope not.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. So you ease my concern there. I think that the way you described that, yes, Billy Napier fits that. I also think Dave Aranda fits that.
Yeah. I don't want to make this an Aranda Napier debate, but it almost does on this sense. If you were in charge of making this hire, would you go offense or defense? Would you put a more emphasis on one side?
I would. I guess because Aranda's kind of the guy I like, I guess I'm saying I would go defense.
Right.
But really, the entire reason why I like Dave Aranda is predicated on how I think he manages a program overall. You know, I'm almost resigned in this particular process from thinking about the side of the ball that those coaches specialize on. To be honest with you, you asking me right now is the first time I've thought about that critically. I know, obviously, which side of the ball each guy specializes on. Like, I know what side of the ball Lincoln Riley specializes on. I really think with the resource you will have at your disposal at LSU and the recruiting resource you will have, if you are an elite organizational guy, an elite structure guy, you'll have all the talent in the world to where if you assign the right people to the other side of that ball, there's no reason for me to ever watch an LSU football game and even be able to tell which side of the ball the head coach specializes on.
You like Aranda. We like Aranda too a lot. I mean, I loved him when he was here. Do you know if there's been contact? Do you know if he's even a legitimate candidate for the job? You know, because there's been mixed rumors here about he hasn't been contacted. He has been contacted. Do you have any insight on that?
He was, as you would expect, a steel trap about that last week. I feel fairly confident that the tires have at least been kicked on that. Yeah. I do feel confident about that. I don't know about formality. I don't know about one person directly talking to another. I know nothing about that. I do feel like tires have at least been kicked, overtures, back channels, however you want to term that. I do think that's in play. I also think it's realistic to expect that at this late stage in the game, Scott Woodward obviously has his hot board, the only one that really counts. I don't know where Dave Aranda's name is on that. I know where he is on mine. But I also think that he's an adult and understands the process. Now, the other thing that you don't know is what are these guys' personal preferences? Because everybody we're talking about right now is in a consequential season. Baylor's in this thing, Oklahoma's in this thing, Louisiana's in this thing. So you don't ever know, if some guy out there is totally willing to talk once he goes home every Thursday night, and one guy says, nope, I'm not listening to it at all until I get done with this season. I don't know what kind of guy Dave Aranda is on that front.
Who makes sense at Virginia Tech to you, just kind of off the top of your head?
I'd be interested to see if Napier gets his name involved there, because that's who they want up there. Like, they've looked at Billy Napier. Look, here's the only thing I wonder. Knowing the jobs that Billy Napier has turned down already, I really wonder if Virginia Tech qualifies as the candidate that checks enough boxes to make him leave where he is right now for. Yeah. And listen, he knows his preferences better than me. He probably knows the Virginia Tech job better than me. just listening to him talk, you don't have to listen to rumors. Listening to him talk and knowing where his head's at, if he were to take that job, I would imagine it's come down to, hey, it's just time for me to go. It's just time for me to move on. I don't want to be at a different level. I don't want to be Jeff Brom at Purdue, where I'm really hot and I choose to forego some opportunities and then my stock cools. And I'm not saying that's going to happen with him, but if he moves for Virginia Tech, I got to think that maybe that's part of the equation. Because, I mean, you guys know the job he's had a shot at and hasn't left. Does Virginia Tech seem like the job he would leave for?
No. I mean, if you could get in the SEC, why wouldn't you have taken that chance whenever you had it there?
Does it?
If you're an OSU fan, isn't that what you're concerned about? Because it seemed like Napier's the one in the back pocket. And if you start seeing these other jobs come to fruition, when you see a Florida come open, you see a Virginia Tech come open, you see Texas Tech come open, does any of that move the radar for LSU to have to almost accelerate their process?
It depends on how much leverage their job has. And I would assume the LSU job carries max leverage in the minds of not only the decision makers there, but Billy Napier's folks. And so I don't believe, if the LSU job is still open at this time and Billy Napier has a shot at it, if that is conveyed properly to his folks, his representation, I do not believe there would be a knee-jerk reaction if another job is offered. Now, I know it gets in the weeds a little bit. If they give you a 72-hour moratorium, you got 72 hours, you let us know. Yeah, I know that can get a little hairy. But I think the LSU job and Billy Napier, I think that match will be there if LSU wants it to be there.
This has been a cool 20 minutes with Late Kick Josh Pate, who you can find on Twitter at Late Kick Josh. And as we said, every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday night on the 247 YouTube channel, he goes live with incredible insight. Last one, I'll get you out of here. When it goes back to this kind of Lincoln Riley LSU debate, you had mentioned the Oklahoma LSU job. You did a great job of kind of comparing the two of LSU and USC when they first opened up earlier this season. When you look at these two giants in college football, is what's the comparison on the LSU Oklahoma job?
It's a cloud 9 versus cloud 10 thing. The whole way I looked at it with Riley the other night is I said, if I'm in that situation, I'm not sure I'd make that jump, even though I think LSU is the better job. But the reason is because I've got such a great setup at Oklahoma. That is, to me, jumping from cloud 9, trying to jump to cloud 10. And it'd be interesting now. It would be selfishly to be great for us in the South if he were to go to LSU. But at the same time, I got into the bigger debate the other night about something I didn't think was going to be a debate. And there were people debating me as to whether LSU is a better job than Oklahoma. And look, that's an argument that ends pretty quick for me, but apparently it lasts a little bit longer for other folks. I would still have some surprise, even though I've seen all the stuff out there. I would be surprised if he took that job. I would not be surprised if that ends up being sort of smokescreen type material at the end of the day for elsewhere, or for them going elsewhere.
Enjoy Columbus this weekend. Thank you for your time this morning. Have a great broadcast tonight. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
You got it, bro. There is Josh Pate checking in from Tennessee this morning. As you can find him on Twitter at Late Kick Josh. Check out the YouTube tonight over on the 247 Sports page, as it is a fantastic watch. So informative, very informative.